Somewhere in your brain right now, a prediction is already running. About tomorrow, about next year, about the version of you that hasn't happened yet. You didn't ask it to run, it just does, constantly, quietly, and most of the time it's wrong. What if you could actually see the future, not guess it? Not hope for it, see it the way you see the room you're sitting in right now. Before you answer, consider this. You already think you can. Every time you imagine how a conversation will go or how you'll feel after a big decision or what your life will look like in 5 years, you're running a simulation. Your brain treats that simulation like evidence, like a preview of something real, but is it? Let's start with the uncomfortable part. Most of what you predict about your own future turns out to be wrong, and not just wrong by a little. Psychologist Daniel Gilbert spent years studying something he called affective forecasting, which is a technical way of asking a simple question. How good are you at predicting how you'll feel? His research found something almost embarrassing. People consistently overestimate how happy a promotion will make them and how devastated a breakup will leave them. The intensity fades faster than anyone expects. The joy shrinks, the grief shrinks too. Your future self adapts in ways your present self can't seem to imagine. So, if you can't accurately predict your own emotions 12 months out, what does that say about the version of the future you're currently planning your whole life around? Here's where it gets stranger. Some people are measurably better at seeing the future than others, and it has nothing to do with intuition or gut feeling. Political scientist Philip Tetlock ran a massive study called the Good Judgment Project, testing thousands of ordinary people on their ability to forecast real-world events. Wars, elections, economic shifts. Most people performed no better than chance. But a small group, which Tetlock called superforecasters, consistently outperformed intelligence analysts with classified information. Their secret wasn't genius, it was method. They broke big, uncertain questions into smaller, measurable pieces. They updated their beliefs constantly in tiny increments whenever new evidence appeared. They treated confidence like a number, not a feeling. That's the real answer hiding inside this whole question. Seeing the future was never about mystical vision. It was always about tracking probability better than the people around you. But here's the twist most people never consider. Even perfect foresight might not save you, because the problem was never information. The problem was interpretation. Ask yourself this: if you saw a photograph of tomorrow, would you even recognize what it meant? A single frozen image tells you nothing about the sequence of choices that led there or the ones still ahead. Seeing an outcome isn't the same as understanding it, and understanding is the part that actually changes behavior. This is where a specific kind of blindness shows up, one that has almost nothing to do with the future and everything to do with today. Daniel Kahneman, working alongside Amos Tversky, uncovered a pattern he called the planning fallacy. People consistently underestimate how long tasks will take, how much projects will cost, and how many things will go wrong along the way, even when they've been wrong about the exact same thing dozens of times before. Kitchen renovations, book deadlines, wedding budgets. The forecast doesn't improve with experience, it just gets repeated with more confidence. Why would a species so obsessed with predicting the future be so consistently bad at it? Because the brain isn't optimized for accuracy, it's optimized for motion. A slightly too optimistic forecast gets you out of bed in the morning. A perfectly accurate one showing every obstacle in brutal detail might convince you to never start at all. Evolution didn't need you to see the future clearly, it needed you to keep moving toward it, even blind. So maybe the real question isn't whether you could see the future. Maybe it's whether you'd want to once you understood what it would cost you. Picture it for a moment: real, verified knowledge of tomorrow, not a hunch. Not a superstition, an actual, reliable window into what happens next. The first thing that would disappear is hope, at least in its current form. Hope exists in the gap between not knowing and wanting. Close that gap completely and something changes in how a person moves through their days. Would you still fall in love the same way if you already knew how the story ended? Would a first date feel the same, stripped of its uncertainty? Some of what makes an experience feel alive is the fact that it could still go either way. This isn't just a philosophical exercise. Tetlock's own superforecasters reported something unexpected during his research. The better they got at predicting outcomes, the more they treated the future as a range of possibilities instead of a fixed destination. Not one answer but a spread of them weighted by likelihood. That's a completely different relationship with tomorrow than the one most people carry around. Most people want a single answer. What will happen? Superforecasters learn to be comfortable holding several answers at once, each with a number attached, each subject to revision. Maybe seeing the future was never about replacing uncertainty. Maybe it was about getting more precise about how uncertain you actually are. Let's talk about the version of this that already exists quietly all around you: weather forecasting. It's the closest thing humans have built to genuine future sight, and it works because it abandoned the idea of certainty decades ago. A 70% chance of rain isn't a prediction of an outcome, it's a precise description of uncertainty itself. Meteorologists don't claim to see tomorrow, they claim to understand the odds better than you do, and it works most of the time because it's honest about its limits. What if that's the actual skill hiding underneath this whole fantasy? Not seeing the future, understanding your own odds well enough to stop being surprised by them. Here's a strange consequence of that idea. The people who feel most blindsided by life aren't usually the ones with the worst luck. They're the ones who refused to update their forecast as new information appeared. They kept betting on the same outcome long after the evidence had shifted. Tetlock's research found this exact pattern in failed forecasters: a stubborn attachment to an original prediction even as reality quietly disagreed with it week after week. So maybe the opposite of seeing the future isn't ignorance, it's rigidity. Refusing to let the picture change, even when it should. Now flip the entire premise one more time. What if the future isn't something to be seen at all? What if it's something closer to being built, one small decision at a time, in a direction so gradual it's invisible while it's happening? This reframes the whole question. You don't need a window into tomorrow if you understand the mechanism that creates it. Every habit repeated enough times becomes a trajectory. Every trajectory extended far enough becomes a future, not a mystical one, a mechanical one, predictable not because you can see it but because you're the one steering it. Gilbert's research on affective forecasting actually points toward something hopeful buried inside all the bad news. If people are this unreliable at predicting how a future event will feel, then the anxious version of tomorrow living rent-free in your head right now is probably just as unreliable. The catastrophe you're dreading in exact, vivid detail is almost certainly wrong, in the same way the joy you were expecting from that promotion turned out to be wrong. Wrong in scale, wrong in duration. The emotional forecast, whether doom or triumph, tends to be exaggerated compared to what actually arrives. Does that mean the future is unknowable? Not exactly. It means most of what you're currently afraid of has already failed a basic test. It was generated by the same forecasting machinery that gets things wrong again and again in study after study, decade after decade. So where does that leave you? Not with a crystal ball, something more useful than that if you're willing to use it. You get to choose which model of the future you trust. The vivid, emotional one your brain manufactures at 2 in the morning, full of certainty and short on evidence. Or the Tetlock model, the superforecaster model, small updates held loosely, revised the moment new information arrives. One of those models has been tested against reality thousands of times and consistently wins. The other one just feels more real, because fear is loud and probability is quiet. Here's the final piece worth sitting with. The future was never going to arrive as a single frozen photograph, the way this whole video started by imagining. It arrives the way it always has, as a slow accumulation of ordinary days, each one slightly nudging the trajectory in one direction or another. You don't get to see it in advance, but you do get to build it deliberately, one small decision at a time, whether you're paying attention or not. So maybe the real question was never whether you could see the future. Maybe it's this: what if the future was never something to be seen and was always something you were already building, one quiet decision at a time,